strikers of the Kansas Jayhawks.
Welcome, everybody, to the Border War podcast on the Kansas City Sports Network. We're presented by 360 Vodka. I'm Jarrett Sutton, joined as always by the one, the only Jeff Hawkins in his looks like a new living room, Jeff, really, for our podcast, man. Looking good. You got the piano in the background.
Yeah, upgraded. I'll get some piano action in a little bit after the game.
There you go.
Oh, no game now. No game now. Sorry, no game now.
I know. We're jumping on here. We were about an hour and a half to tip between Kansas and Colorado. That game canceled, mutually agreed upon. So I think that's a good way to say it. I'm not sure who's dealing with what, but game is canceled. So Kansas goes right into their holiday break. We'll still break down their win after the Mizzou-Kansas game against Stephen F. Austin. A lot to talk about with Missouri, too, heading into this podcast with a win against Utah. They have bragging rights in St. Louis tomorrow. Always a big rivalry game. Did want to take a quick minute to just thank Wayne and Larry's for hosting us in Lawrence. That was great. Great way to kick off.
Wayne and Larry's.
That was great. We had a great show leading into to the game that afternoon. It was a beautiful day in Lawrence, and that was a great way to kick off the day. And our surprise guest as well, and Keith Langford showing up, and really enjoyed that conversation. So thanks to Wayne and Larry's for having us a couple weeks ago. We haven't had a podcast since then, so let's dive into it, Jeff. I know you were at Allen Fieldhouse. So many former players back, which was really cool to see. So I'll just open up to you of just like what it was like to be back in Allen Fieldhouse. Yes, it was Missouri. So the rivalry feel, Kansas rolled, but how was it to be around your former teammates and right next to the bench on Saturday a couple weeks ago?
Yeah, it was cool, and obviously with COVID, didn't really have an opportunity to get back in the field house like that, and obviously to be able to come in with the rival game being renewed with Missouri, and be able to see former players and the field house being packed. That was just a great experience. Normally when I'm out, even when I come see games, I'll be the first one to tell people, like, I don't play basketball no more. Like, I hate playing basketball. Mm-hmm. And literally being there in that moment was like a weird moment, because like it made me truly miss like playing basketball, just with all the emotions, the rivalry, being back, being in that atmosphere really made all those emotions come out. So it was just really cool to be back. And anytime you can be around the former players and reminisce on the old days and talk about how the current guys wouldn't be able to handle you back in the day is always fun to talk about. Absolutely.
Be able to share stories, and not just games, but practices and all those in-between stories that you always have. So that's great. And then, I mean, obviously the game in itself, Kansas won that thing wire to wire. Couple plays that stick out. Christian Brown, I thought, just took a hold of that game, and I think first 3 minutes that game was over. And he actually he had a swagger to him. I loved his post-game comments too. You could tell this was a little bit different for him. His brother having played, at Missouri, and DeJuan Harris. We talked about that going into it a couple weeks ago. I thought it was his game too, where he shot the ball really well and had a really good offensive day. And I thought was really good as well. Ochai was consistent as always. I'm sure good for Coach Self to play a lot of guys. Jalen Wilson was able to play a lot of minutes there down the stretch. But all in all, wire to wire, great win for Kansas in terms of the rivalry and putting their stamp on the border war there for this first time out.
Yeah, good win. Really good win for Kansas. But I'll talk about some of those points you hit as well too. But I just think just overall, just great experience, not just for both teams. Being able to renew that rivalry. Obviously, and you'll dive into this a little bit later, Missouri coming off of a big win against Utah, leading up into another rival game. So I just think the experience, allowed both teams to grow from that. And again, that's why I'm excited again about this rivalry being kicked off again. And, you mentioned CB and DeJuan, both of those guys with Missouri ties. So I think, that game really brought out a lot of emotions between the both of them. Obviously, DeJuan being from that area, and CB having blood relatives that have blood, sweat, and have blood, sweat, and tears, on those courts, and they know what it feels like to be a Tiger. So a lot of emotions, they played with, and obviously that atmosphere was a great atmosphere to do that in. So you gotta respect the rivalry for, by all means, because it brought out the best in CB and DeJuan for sure.
And then you fast forward from that game, and Mitch Lightfoot, I thought, gave him really good minutes. He ended up fouling out. And I still call him Prison Mitch. I don't know if Kansas fans still do it, but I still think about Prison Mitch every time he steps on the floor. But he gave him good minutes, and I think that's something that we've hit on with KU right now. David McCormick. When you go back to last season, David McCormick got off to such a slow start, and then boom, just kind of hit the gas in Big 12 play and was really good for Kansas to end the year last year. A little bit of a slow start this year as well for David. And it seems like, Coach Self has really leaned on Mitch Lightfoot quite a bit early on in this year. You saw it in the Stephen F. Austin game where he played him 26 minutes. And Mitch is doing a good job. I mean, I think there's the trust there with Coach Self to put Mitch in the game, knowing he's going to do his job. He knows the system. He's been there for forever. It's talked about enough. So he knows what's expected of him. And then again, we've talked so much about roles. He embraces that role. But I think even when you look at the Stephen F. Austin game, it was great to see Jalen Wilson play 20 minutes and score 10 points. Mitch still played, a good amount of minutes at the 5. Is that something you're thinking about too, of just Kansas having to have that 5-man? It just seems like in Bill Self's offense every year, he wants to have a 5-man that he can really throw the ball inside to be productive, to kind of have a presence in that paint, knowing that they're going to be guard heavy with Remy and with Ochai and with Christian, but they still have to have that inside presence.
Yeah, I think that's every coach's dream at the end of the day, to be able to have that 5 that you can just throw the ball into. They can get easy buckets. They can rebound around the rim, put backs, because even once you throw it to them, Jarrett, those big guys, if they're dominant down below, they attract attention. They attract double teams. They attract they attract guys to be in a little bit more help than probably what they need to be, just so they can be ready to react and rotate. So if you have a big that can obviously get buckets around the rim, it just spreads it out for those guards. And obviously, me being a guard, I loved it when our bigs got doubled and teams had to rotate and they threw it out to me, because I knew it was going to be a good look at, an opportunity to score. So having a great inside presence really does a good job of allowing those guards to really be creative and do some of the things that they're really good at.
Yeah, because when you look at Kansas's offense, it's not an isolation heavy offense. It's not a heavy pick and roll offense. It's based off ball movement and paint touches, right? High, low, making sure you're working the ball in, screening, player movement, ball movement. It's what makes Kansas hard to guard. And it's also, how Bill does such a great job at Xing and O'ing it, and, those design sets, ATOs that he can play off of that. So there's kind of a method to the madness, really, of that paint presence, and that 5 is really important to establish that and having some level of production. And I just feel like Coach Self so far earlier in this year, and again, we're just going to track this Kansas team as we go through the year. I'm really interested to see how this works with David, and I hope he comes along strong. But you have Mitch there.
Obviously, not benching Mitch. Yep,
exactly. And you have Jalen, who I still believe can be that at least rebounding presence. Guy that can go get you 10 rebounds on a given night
for sure
when he's locked in. So it's one of those things where I think Coach Self is, as any coach, working through personnel, through his minutes and his
what
rotations.
He gets paid the big bucks for, right?
That's right. That's exactly right. And look, I think we saw it in the Stephen F. Austin game. I mean, Ochai played 39 minutes. Christian played 36. Remy played 35. I mean, those are heavy minutes. Obviously, a closer game. Probably the score shows a little bit indicative of that game, that Kansas wins by 8. But those minutes were pretty heavy, and I'm sure Coach Self would like to at least get a little bit of a spell. Luckily, they had the Missouri win where they could spell guys for those minutes. But that's what I think I'll be looking for too, is just those rotations and where Kansas goes at 5.
Yep, and I mean, you hit it best. It's tough for any coach, and this is still kind of early, but it's about that time where they're about to start really locking in that rotation. And, you mentioned it earlier, Coach Self still trying to find that dominant presence. And obviously McCormick got into some foul trouble and only played 10 minutes. And, didn't really get to produce that much. So he had to move to his bench. And like you said, Jalen Wilson stepped up. This is a guy that they've been waiting to gain some confidence. Oh, I got some my ESPN stuff's going on. I don't know if you guys could hear that, but it was coming through my headphones. And I'm in Plainville.
It's your producer in your ear.
I know.
That hitting you in one-liners.
Yeah. I mean, Mitch Lightfoot's doing a really good job as well too, coming in, stepping up. He just knows what to do. So that's obviously a plus when you have a player that just knows exactly what to do. Geez, for some reason, can you hear this stuff? I'm sorry, I'm like going off air, but it keeps kicking to when I'm on ESPN and I look at stats.
It always does that.
All right.
I hate.
So now I'll block it out, and I'll just block it out next time. But obviously, having that good bitch production helps out. Obviously, if you want to make deep runs down the stretch.
Yep. And if you go back to that Missouri game, kind of to tie in both those games, and Kansas, unfortunately, not playing tonight against Colorado. I was looking forward to that game.
Yeah.
That was a true good road test for Kansas, good non-con road test. Unfortunately, not having that game, and it's not going to be rescheduled, so Kansas got a long break. But if you look at their win against Missouri and their win against Stephen F. Austin, they're getting really good, consistent play from Ochai and Christian.
Yeah,
that you can tell they're leaning on that. And Remy, it was good to see Remy score the ball. I thought efficiently enough, right? 15 points. Also, I thought distributed the ball pretty well. Had 4 assists. So I think Remy coming along slowly each game.
Yes.
But in the Missouri game, I loved his intensity. I loved how he was more engaged defensively than he was offensively.
Yeah.
That's a really good sign. You can tell it's clicking with him in terms of wanting to win and wanting to understand that he's in a totally different environment. We've hit on it many times, but Remy was good in that game and I didn't think he took any bad shots in that game. He had a couple isolation buckets that were good buckets. They were late in clock moments. And again, I told this to Brady Morningstar. Actually, I said, look, if in March, you're going to have a guy at some point that, late in that close game can go attack and create. Yeah. And Remy does have that. And, he's got that, like, I don't want to say street ball and one mixtape type stuff, but he's got those, he's got that shifty creativity, craftiness that, as you know, is a guard. But if he can get to that place, though, Jeff, where he can be creative off the dribble, not just looking to score.
Yeah.
But creative too. Okay, there's Ochai in the corner.
Yeah.
There's Christian in the corner.
Like DeJuan Harris. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's where DeJuan's probably good for Remy. And man, DeJuan just got such a maturity to him.
He does.
There's a reason why Coach Self loves that kid. No question about it. So Kansas on a little break though, but at 10-1 and playing some good basketball right now heading into the Christmas break.
Oh yeah, and I'll just touch real quick. So obviously we want to talk. We want to hear a little bit about what Missouri's going on, and they got some. I mean, they got some good things to talk about. Obviously on the Missouri side as well too. But touching back with what you said with DeJuan Harris, and not only DeJuan but Remy. Remy's done a really good job. Hats off to Remy. He's kind of had to switch his whole game style, be adaptive, and just kind of be able to fit in with what Coach Self wants to do. And it was a little bit rocky, for the first couple of games, but he's really adapted and he's been coachable. He's bought in. I think he and Coach Self have a good understanding of what Remy needs to do in order to make this team go. And, obviously you can see against Stephen F. Austin, he had a great opportunity. He hit a big time shot. That 3 that he hit late in the clock was what the Jayhawks needed. And you talk about a guy in March that you need to be able to go get a bucket when you need to. I think Remy's, putting himself in a position right now to be able to do that. And then piggybacking on what you said about DeJuan Harris, if he can, they're kind of good for each other. I do agree with that, because if Remy can continue to take what DeJuan Harris does to be the point guard, to set his teammates up, to get that, like you said, to create, it will only expand Remy's game because he's a scorer, and it will really make the defensive teams really guess on what his next move is. So I think those two are continue to learn from each other, and I think DeJuan needs to learn a little bit from Remy as well too, to go get a couple shots, man. Go shoot.
Yeah, he had that Missouri game. I mean, wide open shots. You got to take those. So I'm glad he did, and he shoots it well. I mean, he's a capable scorer. So that's it's well said too from the former point guard himself. Jeff Hawkins. Let's flip the script here. Let's talk about Missouri. Not a lot of positives to take away from the Kansas game. Actually, the one positive I had was in the final 4 minutes. It was kind of mop-up duty, and Konzo put in Sean DeRogan, who's a freshman, and he actually looked, I thought, pretty good in terms of just looking like his athletic ability. He was bouncy. He's a strong guard. He's not being able to really crack minutes. And so I thought he played pretty well at the end of the game. I also, Trevon Brazile went into the game. I thought shot it pretty well. He's a freshman. He's not going to be overly dynamic in terms of playmaking, putting the ball on the floor yet, but he's got great size. And look, Missouri needs 3-point shooting, and Trevon in a short amount of time in 3 games is shooting 40% from 3.
Yeah.
A lot of those are spot up opportunities. But this Missouri team is so desperate for 3-point shooting. We saw that in the Kansas game. I thought Javon Pickett was by far Missouri's best player. It was unfortunate for Kobe Brown to get in early foul trouble.
Yeah.
Really was a non-factor in that game. And for Missouri to have any sort of chance to just be competitive, Kobe Brown had to be on the floor, and he just really wasn't for that first half.
He's a difference maker.
He is. And, you flip the script and you look at the Utah game, and it says it all with 27 points in 25 minutes and, super efficient. He had 9 rebounds in that game, was really good. And I think this is what we're going to get used to seeing from Missouri. And it's an adjustment that Konzo Martin had to make. Missouri could not keep playing, same rotation, same start. They had to mix it up, right? You got to find something when you really have no spark at all. I thought Missouri was so stagnant offensively, and I think it was because Kobe Brown was in foul trouble, and Kobe Brown's the only guy really on the roster that can go make a play or is going to go be aggressive. I thought Javon Pickett did most of that in that first half against Kansas. He had a really good first half, but he was really the only guy that looked for a shot. I mean, they're running through the offense and they're passing the ball side to side, and take nothing away from Kansas defense. Kansas defense was really good, but Missouri just did not look really aggressive at all. And then when they did want to drive it, it was very easy to guard. Kansas help side defense and rotations were really good. And it's a lot of standing. And that's when Missouri is so bad, and Missouri couldn't get anything in transition. Utah, and it needs to be said for context purposes, Utah was without their best player, Ben Carlson, who's their best scorer, best rebounder. So that's a big factor in the game. But for Missouri to score 80 points and score 51, or I believe 51 or 53 in the second half, they've had these spurts where they have really good halves. Like but as you can't have one great half and then have 6 consecutive halves where you shoot under 30% from the field, or you shoot 10% from 3. You're going to get blown out. But for Kobe Brown to put kind of his stamp on that Utah game, and I think one of the things that Konzo is doing, and what I just saw differently in the Utah game is, look, put the ball in Kobe Brown's hand. And if that means a guard or a wing is going to guard him, put Kobe Brown on the block, run some action where you can get some back screens or something to get him some momentum to the block where he can get an angle, because he's so strong. When he has any angle, he can finish pretty well through contact or get to the free throw line, which he's done a very good job. He's shooting a career high from the free throw line in terms of attempts and percentage. That's good offense. But then if a team wants to put a big on him, he can take it out on the perimeter and drive the ball, get downhill. And that's what he did a lot of in that Utah game, is drive the ball. Where this team is going to have to take another jump forward is to what we said about, Remy Martin putting the ball on the floor, creating, trying to find passes. Kobe's going to have to put the ball on the floor and find shooters as well. And Missouri's going to have to make 3-point shots. And right now, Kobe's not used to being that. He's not used to being a playmaker. He's used to going straight line, drive it, get to the rim, play aggressive, and he's got to look to score for this team. Yeah. But as you know, teams are going to scout, and they're going to put a guy in the gap, and he's going to drive the ball, and there's not going to be any driving lane. He's not going to get an angle, or he's going to get doubled, and he's going to have to give the ball up. And Missouri's still going to have other guys step up and make plays. And I think Amari Davis played well. He's been very up and down and very inconsistent. He was a non-factor in the KU game. Amari had 17 in the Utah game. Had really good in the mid-range. Yeah, he did. He was solid in that game. Ronnie DeGray is another guy that, to me, Ronnie DeGray is like a poor man's Jalen Wilson for Missouri. He can go get you 10 and 7. He can have a quiet night where you look up and he's got 8-9 rebounds, and he's not going to get the game. Game's coming to him, and he's not shooting the ball from 3 all that well, but he can make a 3-point shot. Yeah. You look up and down Missouri's roster. They have probably 6 guys that shoot it in the mid-20s from 3. Kobe Brown being one of them. the majority of the roster shoots 25 to 26% from three outside of Trevon Brazil. That's got to change. And to me, that's a player thing. And we can talk about this. That's players getting in the gym, getting shots up, making shots. It's a personal thing as well. It's also, I think it's a coaching conversation too. And, coaches are going to be up at night figuring out, how do we get guys in positions? How do we give guys confidence? How do we make it easy on ourselves to score? And to me, that means continuing to play in transition when you can, and not just settling it in the half court, walking the ball up. You got to play fast. They did that in the Utah game, and it was a good win. Now we flip the script and we talk about another rivalry in Illinois. So bragging rights for Missouri is tomorrow, and it's Jeff. Outside of the Kansas game, we've talked so much about the Mizzou-Kansas rivalry. There's nothing like it. Illinois for me was kind of right there underneath that Kansas game. It was such an incredible atmosphere in St. Louis. That line is split. It's orange. It's black. Down in downtown St. Louis, holiday season, everybody's in the holiday spirit. We had some absolute, great games with Illinois. And this series has kind of been in spurts. Like when I got to Mizzou, we lost our freshman year to Illinois. And at that point, I believe it was something like Illinois had won 8 straight in the rivalry. And then we pulled off 3 straight to follow to end my run. And then they won 2 more after that. And now Konzo's got them on a 3-game series winning streak against Illinois. And one of those wins was last year.
It's going to be, this is going to be nice.
it is. And Illinois is a, better team, top to bottom. They got a better record. They got guys that are back. Kofi Coburn, who's one of the better 5 men in college basketball, probably one of the better players in the Big Ten. He's back. Missed the first few games of the year. Andre Curbello's back. He's not played all that well. He's been banged up with injuries. He's a very good point guard. This Illinois team's without Ayo Dosunmu. Ayo made everything go for Illinois last year, which is why they were so good. Ayo now with the Chicago Bulls, NBA player. He was their closer. He was the guy that made things happen for them. And now Illinois, I think, is still trying to figure out who that guy is in terms of, is it Trent Frazier? Is it Curbelo? Alfonso Plummer, a transfer, has been really good for them. He's averaging 17 a game. The Davison kid, it's probably averaging like 13 to 14 a game. He's been very good, shooting over 50% from 3. He has been really good for Illinois as well. So it's going to be a fun matchup. I do expect Illinois to be the favorite, obviously, but you never know with these games. And these teams know each other really well.
It's a rival, man.
It's a rival. You know how it is. And that environment will be good out in St. Louis. It'll be a fun one.
And, you mentioned it too. It's, the rival renewed with KU. Some of those players are just they're learning. They're still learning about how that rival was. So they haven't played in it. These players have played in this game, so they know what they know what it feels like. They know the emotions it takes to what it feels like, and it's always tough. Any team coming off of a win to me is a scary team, and too, Jared, any team coming off of a loss too can be a scary team too, because they're searching for that win. So that just goes to show you that it's anybody's game. And obviously I like what you talk about with Kobe Brown. The ball's been put in his hands a lot more. To me, he's 6'8", 255, 260. That's a big frame. And obviously getting guys to be able to knock down shots. That's going to be a big thing. DeGray, I think he shot 37% last year from 3. So, you talked about guys, they can do it, and it's about, you mentioned it briefly as well too. It's, those guys have to get in the gym, the more you see it, that's, to me, it is with any sport you do, repetition, baseball, golf, whatever it may be. The more you see, the more you do it, the more you get that feel, the more confident you feel in any type of moment. So for guys that they're not shooting where they want to shoot, they want to be at a higher percentage. That means you just got to go put in the extra work, get in before practice, get in after practice. That time when you can say, hey, I'm going to go hang out with some friends. No, I'm going to stay in and go to the gym and shoot for 2 or 3 hours. And I'm going to see that ball go in. So when I step up in a prime time situation, I don't have to think about if it's going in or not. I just know I just got to let it touch my hands and shoot it, and I know it's going in. So you hope that, obviously with Kobe Brown attracting so much attention, that guys will continue to try to make themselves grow as far as getting in the extra reps, because the opportunities are going to be there, because Kobe Brown's a problem. He's a problem.
Mm-hmm. There's another player, Jaron Coleman. I know we've talked about him before. He's missed some games. He was brought in as a guy that could make shots, that could stretch the defense. He's a capable three-point shooter coming in. He's gotten off to a slow start too. He's shooting 26% from three. He's another guy that can make catch and shoot shots. Yeah. And they're going to need some of these guys. Mark Davis was brought in to make perimeter shots and to be, relied upon guard. That's why he came here. And it just feels like it's taking them some time. And I think some of that is mental. I think there's some of that that creeps in. I think it's also important to keep guys confident. Like, this is your roster. This is all you got at the end of the day. And look, we talked about this on our last podcast. Like, it's December. It's like you said, it's still early. It's you're into the non-conference. You see the league play right around the corner. Yeah. And so there still has to be a level of closing on non-conference on a positive and building and learning from each game, win or loss. I think this is with any team. You're not in league play yet. And like for Kansas and Missouri, Big 12 and SEC play is going to be a bear. Just looking at what the Big 12 is, there's some obviously Baylor and Iowa State. Oklahoma's playing well. And, obviously Texas and Texas Tech, those are always tough teams. And Chris Beard's still in the conference, just with a different team. I mean, it's going to be a bear. And then you look at the SEC, it's totally different, obviously, with Alabama and Arkansas in the mix. And, Tennessee's always in the mix. Kentucky's always in the mix. Florida's always in the mix. I mean, there's a lot of teams. You start rattling off a lot of teams. It's competitive. And you don't want to be embarrassed every night. That's going to be a long, long year. You got to find something. And that's on players and coaches. All you got, and you got to figure it out at the end of the day. But there's still time to do that, and that's building game to game.
Yep, you mentioned it. That last phrase, game by game, building on it. Early in the season, those are a lot of key words that you were talking about, and that's really all it is. It's early in the season, but again, you want to make sure that you focus and you're doing the things that you're supposed to be doing, because last thing you want is embarrassment, getting blown out. So, but I think Missouri, I think they're going to be in a good position, man. I like their eyes where they're sitting at right now. Guys aren't playing up to their capability right now, so the way you got to look at it. What's the positive in that negative situation? There's a lot of room to go up. So, if they're willing to put in a little bit more work and continue to grow, I mean, obviously the sky can be the limit, literally. Yeah. So it's going to be fun to see, how they run with this momentum, keep these games competitive, keep guys growing. Because I think Missouri, obviously, with Kobe Brown, man, they have something to work with Kobe Brown. And if you get some shooters around them, get those guys some confidence, that's a scary team. Yeah. That's a scary team.
And as you know, when you get into seeing box scores and you see those blowouts, there's tendency for that next team to overlook you.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And we've seen it before, and you come out flat and you open the door for a team that's really struggled, that, hey, you can give up one doing something like that. And it happens. Yeah. It's why in college basketball, what I love about college basketball is, especially when you get into February and March, like you can look at paper and you can look at both teams and you can look at records and stats. At the end of the day, like it is decided on the floor. Like that's what it is. Like, who you never know who can catch fire, who can find that rhythm. I mean, it's what makes basketball such a fun, exciting game. Is I just think there's some, and obviously, the coaching part of it and game planning strategy and all that goes into it, but you just never know. And that's why you take each game and there's pros and there's positives, but there's negatives and there's things to work on. That's with anything. There is one thing we got to talk about before we exit here, and that is that Steph Curry broke the 3-point record. And topped Ray Allen.
And I don't feel anybody's going to get close to that thing.
There's a chance if he plays as long as Ray Allen did. I mean, we're talking like 5,000 threes in a career. Crazy. I mean, you're talking a number that is, and obviously it's unfortunate Klay Thompson has had, these horrible injuries. And, I think that loss of time I think Clay's one of the best shooters of all time as well. I mean, he's that good, and that's what's so wild about both of them being on the same team. But I did want to talk just about Steph and just he has changed the game in a lot of ways. I do think, given we're a basketball podcast and just this moment in time, I think it's not overlooked, but it's just the fact that, like, Steph broke it. We knew it was going to happen. Yeah. But just how quick he got to this number and beating Ray Allen and Reggie Miller's numbers. And he also went through his own injury problem where he missed quite a bit of time. Yeah. But having worked for the Santa Cruz Warriors years back with Mark Jackson when he was head coach, before Steph won the championships, to see that guy work, to see how he brings so much joy to his craft, unbelievable teammate, unbelievable leader, humble in every way, willing to take criticism too as a superstar, willing to accept who he was. This guy coming out of Davidson had ankle issues. They didn't know if he could play point. They thought he was too small, might have turnover problems. Can he defend? I mean, this guy's had so many questions. And Jeff, you've heard this before, like, I'm just a kid from, Akron. I was overlooked and doubted. I mean, Steph was overlooked. He was legitimately overlooked. And to see him be the greatest shooter of all time, and I don't think it's even a conversation, and to see, like, it's not just the shot making, it's the range, it's the volume, it's the consistency. I mean, it's unbelievable to watch him live, too. And if you're a basketball fan, you haven't seen him live, do it. I mean, take your kids to go see him, because it's unbelievable to watch that guy live.
I mean, you talked about, Steph Curry. Yes, he is the GOAT. He changed the game, and I wish I would have been playing in the era of Steph Curry, because, I loved everything he did. He's stretches it out, wasn't more so inside outside, where you get to shoot that deep threes. You got guys shooting 10+ threes in a game, which was a no back when I played. Yeah. You better not shoot 10 threes. You better find a way to drive it to the hole or something. So obviously Steph changed the game from that standpoint, and I wish I would have had the opportunity. But you talk about his volume and scoring. You talk about your Ray Allens and your Reggie Millers, who broke that record pretty much a lot. To me, the way I fell off was a lot of catch and shoot, and some off the dribble. But the way Steph Curry does it, man, he does it coming off screens, off the dribble, off deep. Half court. It doesn't matter. Like, he does it, to me, the best from a catch and shoot standpoint, and coming off of the dribble. He has checked the boxes on every issue that you can talk about with that concerns anywhere of shooting the basketball beyond the 3-point line. He's just a fun guy to watch. And you mentioned, I think that's something that, I got to make sure I get the full family out and go watch him play, because it's going to be one of those deals where, you can literally say, I got to watch the greatest shooter of all time shoot in a game, because every time he plays, he's going to give you something that, it's like Michael Jordan would give you something to wow you about, like, wow, look at that. Did you see that? Steph Curry is the same way, whether he makes 10 threes in a row in a game, or shoots one falling back off of 1 foot with his left hand. Who knows? You never know what's going to happen with Steph.
And let's be clear too. These are elite defenders that are guarding Steph night in and night out. Yes. The coaching and the game planning and, like, the strategy that goes into trying to stop Steph Curry. Yeah. That's one part of this too that I think fans don't take, nearly into consideration. And not to harp on, the 80s and the 90s and the toughness and the grittiness of those games, and, the bad boys of Detroit, all these things. Yeah. The athleticism, the strength, the physicality the game is at an elite level, and the defense of game planning, strategizing, double teaming. Everything you could think of. Steph's seen it all, and to still do what he's doing is unbelievable. I also want to shout out Draymond Green, who could be one of the best screeners and a great, unbelievable passer.
Best team player ever. Who gets
ever? It. Yeah. He needs to be talked about a lot too, because does. The unselfishness that guy plays with just to get Steph, and I think Draymond is at the top of the list in terms of assists. Kevin Durant was in this list in terms of assists to Steph. But Draymond's got to be talked about as well. But I do think too, when you think of superstars that like are great role models that have always done things the right way, that have, continually just raised the bar.
Yeah.
Like Steph's in this conversation.
For
Giannis
sure.
is in this conversation. I think Patrick Mahomes here locally in Kansas City is in the same conversation, man. Like building teams and, just how their presence, not just what they do with their skill and their talent, but how they really actually bring that team. Like to have Steph win titles with, Clay and KD and Draymond, it's fascinating. But he also won one without KD too, and like personality's got to mesh. And I think that is also a big thing I've always respected about Steph too.
Yeah, Steph's the GOAT of shooting, man. He's earned it. He's earned it, dude. It's so fun to watch.
Well, Jeff, this has been good, man. It's good to connect again.
Always.
And wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy Holidays. And I know Tucker Franklin, who's running
piano.
the operation. That's right, playing the Christmas holiday piano. Merry Christmas too to all our listeners as well. And I hope everybody has a great holiday. And we'll look forward to talking more about Mizzou and Kansas as we inch closer and closer to conference play. So, Jeff, have a great holiday.
You too. See you guys. Merry Christmas.